and unmute myself, yourself, and say a few words to the audiences.
Hello, great pleasure to join you today and fantastic to share some of the latest research on smart tourism.
We are so excited, right? Okay, so next, we are also very lucky to have Dr. Mario Hadi, our CEO of Pacific Asia Travel Associations. So Dr. Hadi has 30-year experiences in specialized aviations businesses focusing on data analytics and technology, coupled with several corporate leadership capacity. He has been working in the advisory board of the Global Tourism Economic Forum, the Global Tourism Resilience Center, Middle East Travel and Tourism Development Network Center. He also got many years teaching at some top universities such as Hong Kong Polytechnic University, Hospitality and Tourism School, and Guardian Tourism University. He also received an honorary doctorate of letters from Capilano University in 2016 and 2017. So Dr. Hadi graduated from the executive program of Singularity University in Potential Technology and was found honored as the Global Ambassador of Peace through Tourism. So Doctor, can you turn on your camera and unmute yourself to greet our audiences?
Thank you. Thank you very much, LG. A very good afternoon to everyone, or morning or evening, wherever you are around the world. I can see from people joining that you're really literally from every continent and almost every country around the world. It's amazing. So thank you very much for joining us, and I look forward to the discussion later on. So back to you.
Thank you, Doctor. Okay, so before I hand the time, next I would like to say thank you to my friend Israel as a tech support for the event today, and all of the co-hosts who were willing to participate in today's webinar. So here in support, there are Higher College of Technology, the Hong Kong Polytechnic University, Lombard Tourism Polytechnic, the Open University of Hong Kong, Pada India Christ University Student Chapter, Pada Singapore Temasek Polytechnic Student Chapter, and University of Girona. So before I hand the time over to our guest speaker, I just want to very quickly bring you through what we are going to be doing today. So there will be two presentations starting from Professor Buhalis, then followed by Dr. Mario Hadi, in which they are going to take us through some case study from their own personal experiences of smart tourism and smart city. So last is the Q&A sections where you can ask questions based on their presentations. So please feel free throughout the presentation to start plugging your questions in Q&A functions in Zoom. You can also use the chat functions to introduce yourself and interact with other participants, but please do not ask questions to our guest speaker in the chat. Also, just a reminder that this webinar will be recorded and will be made available soon. So stay tuned for that. Okay, now my role is done. I'm going to give the stage to Professor Dimitrios Buhalis. So Professor, please unmute yourself, and I'm really excited to hear what you're going to share with us today.
Thank you very much, gang. Great pleasure to actually introduce the research that we've been doing. This is about 30 years worth of research. And of course, it cannot be summarized in 25 minutes, but I'm going to give a lot of references to people. We can share a lot of this knowledge. Okay, let me see if I can share my screen. I think I can. And very quickly, I'm going to take you through a range of different things. This is beautiful Bournemouth, and you're all welcome to come and join us. And I'd like also to welcome you to write for the Tourism Review and also the Encyclopedia of Tourism Management and Marketing, which I'm currently editing. Now, smart and agile tourism is quite complicated, and a lot of times when we're talking about these things, people are thinking about smartness is about technology. In fact, Smartness takes advantage of interconnectivity and interoperability of integrated technologies to re-engineer process and data in order to produce innovative services, products, and procedures towards maximizing the value of all stakeholders. Smartness is not only about technology, but smartness is about optimizing networks of everything that is involved in the ecosystem. Not ecosystem in the way that environmental ecosystems that colleagues who are dealing with sustainability are talking about, but business ecosystems that include sustainability, include environment, but include a whole range of other functions as well. Smartness supports the re-engineering of tourism products, actions, processes, and services in real time by engaging different stakeholders and simultaneously to optimize the collective performance and competitiveness and generate agile solutions and value for everybody who is involved in the value system. Smartness is therefore the glue of interoperable, interconnected, and mutually beneficial systems and stakeholders, and provides the infrastructure for value co-creation. And all of those things are articulated on this article that I encourage you to read. So smartness brings technology in terms of the Internet of Things, ambient technologies, but also it brings human capital, social capital, knowledge management together, and requires leadership in order to bring everything in the value ecosystem and co-create value in here. And in order to co-create value, you need economic actors, you need social actors, and you need technological actors. And when you integrate those things, you create smart innovations, and smart innovations are in smart cities, like smart mobility, smart governance, smart economy, smart people, smart living, and smart environment. And Mario is going to talk about that in a minute. And then out of that, you create a range of different smart tourism support that enables the tourism industry to operate in a smart way. Smartness requires networks in terms of interoperability and interconnectivity, all the players getting together and using the Internet of Things and the Internet of Everything to interconnect. It needs sensors in terms of collecting data, and needs beacons in terms of sending data away. We look into big data and big data analytics, and increasingly we analyze all these things in real time, and we provide solutions in near real time. We also get involved with social media, the Web 2 and user-generated content, because effectively this is part of the sensors. We can understand what is happening in every situation because we know what people are talking about it at this particular moment. And some media are better in terms of time consumption, particularly in Twitter, because Twitter, you can see what's happening in real time. People are talking about things in real time as they happen in the real world. And then you've got technological enablers for the tourism hospitality industry to co-create value and co-create experience for everybody who is involved. When you analyze the new technologies, you look into what kind of innovations they create and how those innovations can come in the marketplace. And the marketplace is where supply side and the consumer side are mixing together. And there we've got a range of technologies like virtual reality, augmented reality, location-based services, context-based services, and autonomous devices, all of those things that are coming together in the marketplace in order to co-create value and in order to support those things. Now, context is perhaps more important than anything else, because context enables us to understand what is happening to the individual, the traveler, and this is what we call the internal context, and the external context determines what's happening in the tourism industry. So location, weather, social environment, seasons, traffic, emergency, delays, and air pressure. And of course, we are not going to talk about COVID a lot today, but the external context of COVID has actually paralyzed tourism around the world. And that external context now more than ever determines what people do and what they can do, what restrictions are in place, what opportunities are in place, and determine a lot of the travel experiences. When you look into how consumers actually deal with those things, we've done a lot of research on this, and in this paper, we've identified 6 different types of travelers that they use technology differently to have face-to-face social contact when they are at the destination with the local residents, the service personnel, destination management organizations, other travelers, and peer travelers, but also to communicate with a whole range of different players electronically. And those players may not be at the destination, may be everywhere, maybe their friends, their colleagues, their peer travelers. And what you see is that eventually this traveler in the middle is using technology and smart systems interchangeably to develop their experiences. When you look into the different types, you see that some people on the left-hand side are much more connected, while people on the right-hand side, or my right-hand side, they are disconnected. So what we've identified is that not everybody is operating in the same way, the way they operate technology in these smart environments. But what they do is selectively identify the functions that they would like technology to help them. And this is very interesting because each of those types require different ways of communication and exchanging of messages in order to be able to reach them and in order to be able to develop the needs and the requirements they've got during their trip. And now we are looking into the big data, and we're trying, this is a paper that just came out, and we are looking to how we can deal with big data to empower agile, dynamic, volatile, and time-sensitive services. And we are looking to how we can analyze the data, where the data is coming from, and how the data can be analyzed in order to be used by artificial intelligence to actually make decisions. And several of you would have heard me to talk about real time in the past, and I think that we are looking to nowness. And nowness means that in tourism, we need to understand what is the particular context of individuals in real time, and how can we deal with them, how can we add value to them, and how can we enhance their experience based on contextual information. We can find information, contextual information about the location, about the mentions and what's happening around them, hashtags, sentiment analysis, trending, keywords, and competitors. By bringing all of those things together, we can understand what is the context of the traveler in this particular moment now, and how can we maximize the benefit for the traveler and all the other stakeholders who are on this ecosystem. And what we normally see is that there are some real-time triggers that they are changing context. And then we need to look into how the context is changing. And then we need to look into this nowness where you've got co-creation, data-driven, consumer-centric, experience-enhancing, real-time co-creation. And those things enable us to actually maximize the value that consumers can have in each particular moment of their traveling. And we need to understand, okay, there are the big 5 kind of stages of travel, from inspiration all the way to coming back and feedback. But on each part of the trip, there are nano decisions or mini decisions that consumers are called to make. And real time and nowness enable us to supply those travelers with suggestions about this activity. And of course, a lot of those technologies are bringing a range of different things in the marketplace. And one of them is the sharing economy. And we are looking into this research about the impacts of Airbnb to both consumers and residents in different places. And we can see the bright side and the dark side of the sharing economy, because technology has enabled us to see a whole range of new organizational benefits for consumers. Now, there's something that I introduced recently, which is called ambient intelligence. And ambient intelligence means that we are gradually going to situations where we'll have smart systems around us that they are supporting everyday environments, and they propel interconnectivity and interoperability of all the systems, vehicles like your car, your motorbike, and devices through the Internet of Things. Technical developments will allow us to use artificial intelligence, machine learning, ambient connectivity through Wi-Fi, 5G, 6G, autonomous vehicles, and robotics. And all of those things will change the way that the whole market operates, because everything will be interconnected, and all the smart devices and all the smart organizations will operate in a very interchangeable way that brings intelligence and agility into the value co-creation. And what we'll see is that we'll see interaction between humans in all dimensions. So business to business, business to consumers, but also all kinds of different dimensions here, from consumers to consumers, from employees to consumers, from local residents to consumers, to local residents, to interest groups. And eventually, we'll see even robot and machine to machine collaboration. So you'll see robots talking to each other and using smart technologies to understand what is the situation in real time and understand how they can operate in the future. So what we see is that we'll gradually have the consumers in the middle, and then you'll have the Internet of Things, the Internet of Everything, 5G, RFID, mobile devices, applications, and cryptocurrency and blockchain, sensors and beacons, pervasive computing, gamification, and artificial intelligence. All of those things supporting consumers as they are going seamlessly from one environment to another. We'll have user portability, which means that the user is going to bring their data with them, and their data will communicate with other data. And what's going to happen is that this data will operate in real time, supporting all kinds of devices and all kinds of environments to operate together and to maximize the benefit of the value that is co-created for everybody. Now, what is the importance of smartness is the fact that in the past, when we talk about competitiveness, we talk about the competitiveness of one organization. Let's say the destination, the hotel, the airline, the travel agency, or whoever. Now, smartness requires that everybody in the ecosystem works together, that everybody understands the real-time environment, and the decisions are optimized in a way that everybody benefits from that. And those benefits and those impacts will be environmental benefits, financial benefits, and economic benefits, socio-cultural benefits. And at the same time, it will bring the ecosystem to work together in a sustainable way, meaning that the ecosystem will operate in the longer term. That does not mean that everybody will operate on the long term, because only people who actually add value in the ecosystem and they are part of the ecosystem will be able to survive in the future. So if you've got organizations or individuals who do not add value to the ecosystem, they may move away. So what's happening gradually is you see the deployment of technology on a whole range of different things out there, and those things will change everything that we do. Now, I've promised I'm not going to talk about COVID, and because there are a lot of PATA events, and we all speak in different events about COVID. But this is our external environment right now. There are about 12,000 people who die from COVID every day, and this is really tragic. And you can see where these people are, and you can see how COVID has developed over the period of time. Now, in this kind of external environment, I couldn't really not talk about how technology is going to help us get away from COVID with some solutions. And I think what we'll see and what we've seen is smart customers, and smart customers are looking to the information to see where they can travel and what are the conditions of traveling. You see a lot of smart systems and a lot of smart solutions that are coming to the marketplace. And those solutions are supporting track and trace applications. They are helping organizations to actually deal with a lot of people who are traveling right now. Perhaps one of the most important thing is the IATA travel pass that's emerging, where a lot of information about vaccines and whether someone has been vaccinated is stored with their flying documents and their security documents like normal passports, and they'll be able to travel. And this is currently being assessed in Emirates, and in Emirates and Etihad are currently looking into those things. And I think a lot of those things will see us going through COVID in the future. I think gradually, because of smartness, we'll need to see how we need to redesign service and how we can redesign tourism in general, and understand what kind of technologies would we need in order to be able to help the industry move into the future. You'll see a lot of those things. You'll see little robots going around providing service. You'll see robot hotels, although there's a lot of discussion about how successful they are. You'll see a lot of manual jobs being done by machines. And a lot of people are thinking, oh my God, what's going to happen with my job? Am I going to be able to survive it? But equally, I don't know a lot of people who really enjoy carrying suitcases for other people. I think it's an opportunity to actually look into what we do in tourism and improve the quality of life for people around. We'll see a lot of robotics coming into preparation of food and manual kind of work. And we'll see some kind of, okay, this is a little bit funny if you like, but we'll see opportunities for different kind of service design. Now, for the time being, those people who are using this kind of services, they use that as part of their marketing, because people are going to restaurants to kind of experience that kind of robots and what's happening. But we'll see a lot of robots doing work that people don't want to do. I don't know if anybody who would like to wait at 4 o'clock in the morning to do room service to someone in the morning. And we'll see a lot of deliveries around. We'll see a lot of interesting things. But perhaps more importantly, I think what I'm really excited now, and this is what a lot of my research is start looking at, is two things. One is autonomous devices, where the device is taking care of the transportation element, and then individuals start looking to the experiencing. So if the car can drive itself, how are you going to be able to experience the destination when you're there? And a lot of issues are coming into what we call gamification. This is my book that is about to come out any day now. And what you see is that a lot of people will use their mobile phones as guides, and they'll use their mobile phones and smartphones as a way to interact with the environment, using a range of different opportunities that they're coming out, and more importantly, personalize the things that they're doing. Now, when I'm talking about these things, quite often people are thinking that this is something that's going to happen in the future. And this is last year, the last time I was in Hangzhou in China, at the New Century Grand Hotel. This little fellow here was following me everywhere, and he was taking things around, and he ended up being my friend, and we were talking and we're having a little bit of fun. Thank you very much. This some of the publications I mentioned about. Obviously, in 25 minutes, I cannot give you all the things we've been doing for the last 30 years, but have a look on those publications and enjoy, and we'll have the opportunity to discuss later on. Let me stop here and hear Mario, and then answer your questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for your amazing presentations. We are so happy to hear many inspiring stories from your past experiences and what you're passionate about. And your lovely at the Hotel Hang Jack is so lovely, sir. And okay, so I now invite Dr. Mario Hardy to present us about the important role of smart tourism and smart city. What do you understand about this concept and how the world is going to adapt with modern technology and new lifestyle? Doctor, please unmute yourself and we would like to hear your thoughts.
Thank you. Let me share my presentation with you. Good. Second. Again, good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everyone. As I mentioned earlier, I see there are people from all over the world joining us, and thank you very much for being with us today. I'm going to do something a little bit different. Professor Buhalis and I are used to be on stage together quite often in the past, pre-COVID-19. So we kind of know each other, our presentation styles and content. But I'm really pleased that he covered the how of smart cities by going to all the different technologies that are actually working behind the scene to make our life better moving forward in cities. But I'd like to share with you the why. Sorry, my screen just froze. There you go. I'm going to cover something Professor Buhalis already covered a little bit at the beginning. So the definition of smart tourism. Now there's the Wikipedia definition that actually talks about a smart city is an urban area that uses different type of electronic methods and sensors to collect data. Insights gained from data that are used to manage assets, resources, and services efficiently. In return, that data is used to improve the operations across the city. Then there's the McKinsey definition. Smart cities put data and digital technology to work to make better decisions and improve the quality of life, which is an aspect that actually Professor Buhalis actually covered. But here's my definition. A smart city is a more livable city. And I think this is really important because cities are actually designed for people. They're designed for the residents first. And they should be designed for the residents first. But when we think about the future, by 2050, it's projected that more than 2/3 of the world population will live in urban areas. That's 7 billion people. This picture is actually from Mexico. Whoever's been there, there may be actually some people in the audience from Mexico today. Now, is this what we want to live in the future? Or do we want a different type of lifestyle? And to me, a livable city is a city that, as I mentioned, it is designed for the people who live in it, the residents, the permanent residents. The tourists are temporary residents. They're visitors. They come and go. And yes, we should develop cities to make it attractive for them to come and visit. But first, we should think of the people who live in these cities. I want in my city green spaces to go and enjoy with family members and friends, to exercise, to breathe fresh air, to have access to lots of different amenities around me, find a close to supermarket, close to stores, and etc. Having the ability to walk around the city, not be surrounded by vehicles. I think we've done over several decades is actually build cities for cars. We didn't build them for people. But now actually people are asking, no, we want our city back. We want the cars out of our cities, city centers. We want to be able to walk, to cycle, to use different means of transportation, public transport, to get to where we need to be, rather than be surrounded by cars all over the place. You've all seen the movement across Europe, in Barcelona, in Paris, and many other cities across Europe. We're now saying no more cars in our cities. Converting city centers or small areas of their cities into pedestrian areas, or actually areas where people can cycle. Giving priorities to people to be able to walk or cycle to work or to their various activities instead of actually using their vehicles or private vehicles. Now, I posted a story recently on LinkedIn about this, and I was quite interested by the comments. A lot of positive comments from people, but some others who actually said, actually, no, this doesn't work for us. We have to do deliveries. We need our vehicles to go to different places. Personally, I've actually not owned a car since 2005. It's been a very long time. I haven't felt the need to own one because I can either walk, cycle, or in some cases take the public transport to go where I need to be. If you live in a city, if you live in the countryside, that may be a little bit more difficult for some people. But if you already live in a city, why not actually make it more easy for people to move around in a more sustainable manner moving forward? Now, many of you have heard the concept of Zoom Town. This is actually where a lot of people now, because of the current situation, are working remotely. And many businesses around the world, large businesses, have actually said, well, even post-COVID-19, we don't actually plan to go back to the office. We're not having our full complement of staff working from the office, but having many of them working remotely, which means that now we can work from anywhere we want. We don't have to be in a city where we were born or where we live. We can go and live on a beach somewhere, in a mountain somewhere, or we can live in our city but enjoy the beautiful outdoor and work in a park, work in a garden at home, or in different places. So as people are now considering that actually remote working is actually accepted and possible, well, why actually still live in the city if I can actually go and live elsewhere, where it is more livable? There are more green spaces around me. There are other means of transport for me than actually having to drive to different places. So the concept of Zoom Town actually started to actually be created. But it creates another problem. So that's all really beautiful, but all these infrastructure that we build in the cities, these high-rise towers and offices and etc., now may actually end up being empty. If there are less cars being driven, you need less parking. So what do you do with the parking? How do we use the space maybe in different ways moving forward? You need to repurpose the different infrastructure that we actually spent decades to build. Well, not necessarily destroying them, but repurposing them for different use. This is an example of a bridge in Sweden, which was built over 100 years ago. The city council was planning to take it down and replace it with another modern bridge. Citizens within the city actually said, no, actually, let's keep it and let's transform it into a residence. You can see on the left-hand side for me, the screen, we're actually under the bridge. Those are condominiums, apartments that actually were built where people can reside. On top of it, it became a walkway, a garden. There are coffee shops and restaurants on top of it. So repurposing something that was already built rather than actually destroying it and not being able to recycle most of the material anyway. Or if you're in the city, why not use the building and convert them into vertical gardens where you actually grow food locally in your city, and you don't have to, the food or the vegetables don't have to travel for long distances and creating more CO2 emission. They're actually produced locally for you. They're fresher, and also less emissions in terms of transportation. While also not looking at microgrid, where we actually use renewable energy, but locally, instead of having to transport the energy from long distances, we build solar panels and other technologies to be able to produce the energy we require locally, either on top of your building or in the neighborhood where you actually live. As we look at building in the future, we also need to look at sustainable material, using materials to actually build infrastructure that are actually more sustainable. One thing that many people don't realize is actually in the construction of buildings or resorts or other properties, the emissions created by the construction, 40% comes from cement production. There are alternative materials today to be able to build. I've seen 3D printed houses made of clay. I've seen also buildings built out of coffee husk and plastic, combined recycled plastic. There are plenty of other materials that can be used that can either be recycled to build in the future or build with materials that are less damaging for the planet and for the environment. Now let's talk about tourism, because that is the purpose of why we're here today. Now, many of the things I just talked to you about, as I mentioned, cities are and should be built for initially their primary residents. But also, we want to make them enjoyable for people who do visit the cities. And many of the technologies that Professor Buhalis mentioned, they all happen in the background. As a tourist, you may not be conscious what is happening with all these technologies, but they're required. The big data, the massive amount of data that actually are gathered or should be gathered, are required to understand the infrastructure required of the future. So for example, in the city of London, there are now kilometers, hundreds of kilometers, if not thousands, of actually cycling lanes across the city of London. There are thousands of people who cycle to work on a daily basis. Well, how do the city know where they need to build more cycling lanes moving forward? How many will be used, for example, and etc. How do they maintain it? Or are there actually IoT devices, as Professor Buhalis mentioned before, that actually tracks this information moving forward? Now, the same can be applied, and it is applied in different cities around the world for tourism. Where is the biggest concentration of tourists at certain times of the day, the week, or the month of the year? And how do we actually get them to move around to maybe other places? So I'd like to introduce you to Evie. Evie is the lady you see on the screen here on the two panels. One is on the display screen on the window of the shop, and the other one actually on a little kiosk here near the pier. Now, Evie is an artificial intelligence, and she's been built with a human face and a human look and then human interactions. When you address Evie and you address her by name, she will actually follow. If you look to the right, if you look to the left, her eyes will move and she always looks you in the eye. But what's important is Evie is able to understand also your tone of voice, to understand how you feel. So she may ask you, so what do you feel of doing today? And say, well, I want to relax. And so she may come back and recommend you maybe a spa or different other activities you can do in the city that you actually visit. Now, Evie is also able to migrate with you as you move around from one city to another and carry all the knowledge she's learned from you on your past activities. So that as you actually go and visit one place versus another, she will be able to remember what you liked and the places you visit, and may make either a similar recommendation or ask you, do you want to do something different? And give you other list of recommendations. Now, these type of technologies are already available in different forms in different cities around the world, either in chatbots or other forms. Evie is still relatively new and only been implemented in Toronto and New York so far. But I prefer this because she has a human face and someone I can interact with. And also can feel how actually, what I really want to do during the day. But here's the most important part. To me, actually, Evie is interesting. As a user, as a traveler, I would certainly actually use the service to discover new places that I might not know about. However, the most important thing is the data that the system collects in the background. Because Evie, if Evie is actually used by, let's say, millions of people, the city will be able to also aggregate that information and understand when people visit New York, what do they really like to do? And their view might have been, well, they really like to go to shows. Actually, no, they seem to be liking more like street art and see how maybe it changes through seasons, for example. So it helps the city not only to plan for future infrastructure development, but also how they market their services, how they market the destinations moving forward, maybe in a different manner. Because through the data that they've actually been learning in the background about the city itself and the visitors, the people visiting. each of the respective cities. The same can be applied also to the residents. As a resident of a city, we all like to do activities either in the evenings or on weekends, to go to museums, go to plays and etc., or concerts, or different type of activities. The same would apply also for the residents. Now, I like street art. When I visit cities, I take great pleasures in trying to discover wall painted and different sculptures around the cities, local art built by the local communities. I find it fascinating. I love taking pictures of them. That's an activity that I like to do. But it's also a way to, as you build your city, not only to make it more enjoyable for the residents, but also a way to maybe drive traffic from your tourists and maybe at different areas of the town that weren't so popular before. So if I think of Barcelona, for example, there was one area of Barcelona which many years ago was considered unsafe for tourists to walk around. The city transformed the area and allowed the locals to do street art. And also what happened as visitors started to adventure into that area, little cafes opened, restaurants started to open, jobs were created where people were maybe doing illegal activities before. Now had the opportunity to actually do legal activities by creating jobs and actually making the city more livable for the people living in that area, at the same time make it more enjoyable for both the residents and the tourists coming to visit. This is actually another example of street art in different places around the world. It doesn't always have to be pictures or paintings on the wall, but also other sculptures or fun activities, interactive activities, such as this one, a park which is illuminated in the evening and the colors would change. And this is something I believe Professor Buhalis either presented or I can't remember, one of us did at a conference a few years ago, where actually the residents, the people visiting, can interact with the light and actually change a landscape completely from one moment to the next, or from one evening to the other, depending how many people are there, to either an app or other mechanism can transform the landscape completely. So not only create something unique, but it is unique every single time. So even if you visit the city today, and you may come back in a few months' time, you probably want to go back to that area because it's actually changed. It keeps changing all the time. So these are actually technologies that are actually used to make cities, again, more livable and more enjoyable for the residents, the permanent residents, and the visitors too. But as I mentioned before, many of the things I just talked about cannot happen without all the technologies, the IoT devices and the big data collections and the other mechanism that are actually there in the background, the technology in the background that Professor Buhalis presented before. So he presented it to you the how, and I presented to you the why we actually use technology and why cities should be more livable moving forward. So I look forward to our discussion, and if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A and not in the chat, because there are actually hundreds of you and it's really difficult to keep track of the chat. But please, if you have questions, in the Q&A, and I'll hand over the microphone back to Jen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mario, for presenting us about the important role of smart tourism and smart city. So thank you for highlighting many interesting examples of smart city, and we very look forward to see many upcoming innovations and developments in the industry. So honestly, there are so many things I want to ask you guys, but I will let the youth lead the conversations because they are very cool and interesting questions in the Q&A functions. So for the audiences joining us, so please write down your questions in Q&A functions down here. We are very excited to see your enthusiasm and engagement. One of the first questions that we have is directly to Professor Dimitrios Buhalis. So the question is about, since there are many nations that have gotten used with the applications of smart city and easily get access daily, how can you help undeveloped and developing country quickly approach with the latest technology so that everyone can access with the smart tourism and smart city?
That's a very interesting question. I think there is an issue about digital divide, and the digital divide means that some people are using technology and they are much more advanced than others. However, what we see is that increasingly there are a lot of technological tools that they are actually free of charge. And it's not that it's the technology that is stopping smartness, because when you remember, what I said is that smartness is not about technology, it's about leadership in using innovative technological solutions to achieve smart lives. What Mario was saying, it was effectively smart lives and smart cities and smart lives and smart environments. So a lot of the tools that we can use are very cheap or free. I'll give you an example. Everybody has got WhatsApp, right? Or if you're in China, you've got WeChat. Now there's a group of colleagues who are running restaurants in Bournemouth. So they're about 300 restaurant owners or restaurant managers that they got together. They organized. One of the guys whose name is Andrew is a very innovative guy, and he created a group of people that he calls it the wonky table. And this kind of organization, which is a very informal organization, he started in one evening with his friends. Now there are 300 restaurants altogether. They are networked on WhatsApp. It's the smartest organization ever, because what happens is that any of the restaurant managers or owners, that they find something that they need to use in order to manage their situation with COVID, because the restaurants in England for the time being are closed. They are sharing this information. So 300 people, influential people, that they support the economy in Bournemouth, but also they support about 4,000 to 5,000 employees plus their networks. They're just connected in one little free application, which is WhatsApp. So back to the question. We've got a lot of tools that are for free now. 10 years ago, they were not for free. So even destinations or places that they are not so technologically advanced, they've got so many tools. It's a matter of innovation. And I think we are looking especially to you as young guys, that they understand you're digital natives. Mario and I kind of learned technology as we're going along. I got my first mobile phone when I was 30 years old. A lot of the people who are actually following us now, they were born with a mobile phone attached to their hand. So we have got tools that we can use, and those tools will take us forward.
Okay, thank you so much for your answer. It is very detailed and nicely presented. Another follow-up question is for Dr. Hari, which is about informations and privacy, by Maria Rona Rubrica. So her questions is related to jobs opportunity as well as threats. And since smart tourism implementations involve smart information sharing and smart management tools, so how can you make sure that all the user or tourist confidential informations are protected? And will that be affected to the future of jobs as well?
Yes, there are several ways to answer this question. The first part is about data privacy. When I talk about EV, for example, who's collecting information in background about what you like and etc., it is anonymized. So the city won't know who you are and what it is specifically you've done during that day. What they see is a heat map and aggregated information about what in general people would like, but not the individual, for example. So data privacy becomes a real issue when you go a little bit deeper than that, and people are able to identify you as an individual and know your personal preferences. As many of us use search engines today, or Facebook, or other forms of social media communication, we do know that individual information is collected by these companies. And this is where a lot of the discussions and debate around privacy with the big tech is happening currently in different courts around the world. And how much are you willing to give? Now, we've all done it, let's be honest. I've signed up to new services frequently. I'm sure you do as well. You get asked a question, do you agree to the terms and conditions? I really like to know how many of you have actually read any of it. Most of us don't, because when you start clicking on it, you see there are actually hundreds of pages, which they probably do on purpose to discourage you to go and actually read every single line of it. We just want access to the service. So you do as always, you click on it and you move on with your life and share all your information that you've agreed to with all the service providers, but you get something in exchange. So there are a lot of discussions at the moment, which I'm sure Professor Buhalis is probably more familiar than I am, about companies who will eventually and soon in the future will pay you for your data. And there's a big, big movement in Europe and other places around the world where not only governments, but businesses are now actually starting to realize, well, if we want to continue to have access to this information, we will have to reward you, and reward you more than just giving you access to a product, but we reward you either financially or through tokens or through services and discounts on products and etc., that you can really benefit from it. So I do understand the privacy issue. I do support the movement where people who are sharing their information that are extremely valuable, where other businesses are making billions of dollars out of their data, should be compensated, should be rewarded for it.
Yes, because big data is very massive and we need to consider how to storing them carefully. And because like COVID thing is happening right now, in my place in Vietnam, we are using Blue Zone as like a big data. So we have to collect the information of people, of traveling process. And if they don't send us the signal, then it's hard for us to track where they went or what they have been doing. So we need to find a way to make them believe in what we are doing. So the rewarding program is very encouraging.
The second half of the question, which I didn't answer, was about jobs, specifically related to data and data privacy. There are, I actually don't see this as a threat. I actually see this as a great opportunity because all these technologies that Professor Buhalis mentioned before, they have to be managed by people. At the end of the day, even the robots need to be serviced by people. Who needs to train the robot? There are actually people writing codes behind it and actually guiding them and etc. and keeping maintenance of these robots and these different technologies. The same thing with big data and data privacy. That data needs to be, there needs to be a sense of ethics and not censorship, but ethics in looking at guiding the AI and the machines moving forward in terms of what they can and cannot do, or what they should and should not do. And the same thing in regards to data privacy. Again, there's a lot of jobs that actually are being created in an area, and actually job that pays really, really well, by the way. And I think Professor Buhalis was nodding, so I think you may want to add a few comments on this.
Yeah, I think, Mario, you're absolutely right. I think it's those people who we volunteer our data are those people who are adding value to us. In the similar way, like what in my time, you had this a concierge in a hotel or a good travel agent knew a lot of information about you. And the more they knew about you, the better that they could serve you. So it's in the privacy is exactly the same thing. You are trading off personal information for extra value. And if you do not take that extra value, you cut off the relationship. And it's a very similar kind of similar kind of way. And I think you mentioned, and I've seen several questions on the chat, because a lot of young people in particular, they see a lot of those things as a threat, and I think they shouldn't. They should see that as an opportunity, because we need the innovation that's coming from the young brains. We need the new applications. We need the new technologies to actually create a smart living, because a lot of the information we had and a lot of the management practices we had in the past got us into situations where not sustainable, they were not interesting, they were not adding value to our life and not meaning to our life. And I think back to the COVID situation, one of the things that we learned is what is actually meaningful to our life, and what can we do in the future to have authentic experiences that will enhance us as individuals, and how tourism and travel can actually help us with that.
Thank you so much for your answer. Okay, so there's another question that is related to environment, and it is by Dario S.C. Cornell. Her question, pardon me, they say that, what do you think that smart tourism will affect to our environment in general, and what are the most influential frequent developments and research result in smart tourism that affect the sustainable abilities?
This is a very complex question, and I really don't qualify to answer it, because you really need to be an environmentalist and you need to understand environmental engineering. And there are controversial issues here. One is, my answer would be that smart technologies can help understand where are the issues with the environment. What can we do to actually improve environmental protection through reducing carbon print, and by reducing and identifying areas where there are sensitive kind of environments. For example, in Greece, you've got a place where you've got the little careta turtles, right? The sea turtles. Now, if you know where those are, they're on one island and they're hatched in a particular time. So if you know these things, you can use technology to actually warn people and say, look, at this time, do not go to this place, or if you go to this place, do that. So what technology and smartness can do is can enforce us to operate in particular ways. It may be reduce the speed of cars, maybe. So that's why I said I don't qualify, because you need to be an environmental engineer to actually design these things. But technology is helping us in general reduce environmental pollution by better engines on planes and things like that. Having said that, one of the things that nobody is talking about is that, you know, all these server farms that we have got with all this technology is operating, they're incredibly polluting, because they're eating so much energy, electricity, and they're incredibly polluting. So it's a complex question. My answer would be that smartness will support environmental protection by raising the right kind of questions and nagging us, that's the word, nagging us towards the right kind of behavior. And also by bringing new technologies that they reduce the carbon footprint. But other than that, I'll leave that to the experts to answer.
Yeah, I could add maybe just a few words to what Professor Buhalis just mentioned. You know, I think over the next few years, what we're going to see is a lot of innovation specifically around renewable energy, for example, that actually powers not only our cities, but our industries in different areas, where it will make a significant difference. There's a big movement towards more localized productions of energy also, as opposed to having to transport it from long distances, and again, to have a more positive impact on the environment. The other aspect, which is something that I've got myself familiarized over the last few years due to other works that I do, is material science, which is something for me that I was completely unfamiliar with, let's say 5 years ago. But material science is where we use different kinds of materials to build infrastructure, as I mentioned before, as opposed to cement, which is extremely polluting, but using other materials that either recycled materials or other materials that traditionally we all used before, clay and etc., to build our houses or different infrastructure that are now added with different components to make them last longer and be more resistant to climate change and also the other environmental impact.
Thank you so much for your very insightful sharing. It is greatly appreciated. So this is my last questions of the day. So it's about the tourist experiences. And I just want to ask that will now like the level of tourist experiences or the tourist satisfactions will be assessed based on how smart the destinations or the country is? What do you think about?
It will be based on the value that's being co-created. You remember what I talked about typologies, the 6 types?
Yeah,
some
the
people
6
would
factors.
like the 6 types of travelers. Some people would like to arrive to a place, switch off their mobile phone, lock it in, and never touch it again. So they would like interactions to be human interactions, face to face. It doesn't mean the technology is not on the background, because those human interactions may be informed by a lot of technological kind of layers that are on the background. But some other people like myself would like to go to a place and will go with 2 mobile phones and say, okay, here I am in Bangkok. What is the best experience I can have today? Where is the best street food I can have? Where can I watch tennis today? Or where do I see, some of the silk things that you do in Thailand, not the stuff that they are selling in the market, that's imported from wherever, but go to one of these places where one of these ladies was doing that for 40 years and sit down and do it with her, so do the silk thing. So it's about meaningful experiences. Technology is giving us, and smartness is giving us the opportunity to actually engage with the right people within the ecosystem and create meaningful and valuable experiences. Not everybody will be doing this, not everybody will be doing it in the same way, but what we'll do is we'll move into a situation where everybody will kind of engage in this kind of meaningful experiences, and technology will help us to do that.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
the best, to me, the best technology is the one that you don't see, the one that is actually working in the background. So there's a tagline for a bank, and my bank, the bank I use in Singapore, which is called DBS, live more, bank less. Meaning you actually carry on with your life as on a day-to-day basis, but you never have to think about banking. You never have to think about going to and actually bank, because everything happens in the background seamlessly. And that, to me, actually, that's smart tourism or smart cities. That's what it should be for me. That the city just happens by itself, it's livable, and tourism happens without me thinking about the technology I need in the background. But it delivers me value, as Professor Buhalis mentioned.
Let me give you an example on that, because I know that Mario is quite keen on running around different cities. Let's say that Mario arrives in a place and he would like to go riding, go riding on a bike or running around. Based on what kind of runner Mario is, can give him a very personalized kind of itinerary, and can ask Mario 2 or 3 questions, simple questions. How long do you have? I've got 1 hour and a half. Okay. And so the machine knows what is what's the temperature. It knows what the terrain is like. So it can create a personalized kind of itinerary for Mario. I like walking in cities, and I'm a keen photographer. So the machine can actually drag this information together for me, fetch this information, and give it to me and say, okay, how long have you got? 45 minutes. Okay, the best photographic itinerary for you is this. This is where we're going. Personalized, contextualized, and individualized itineraries where everything is coming together for you. And as Mario said, it doesn't necessarily need to be seen anywhere. Technology disappeared. It's about smart living. And this is exactly where we're going.
Yeah, for anyone in the audience who are keen runners like me, there's a great app that does exactly what Professor Buhalis mentioned, which is called Run in City, which is absolutely fantastic for discovering new cities as you travel around the world. You take your gym kit, your running shoes, and open the app, and it will give you recommendations about places where you can go run around the city, but with a little bonus. You put your headset on, and it will actually give you a guiding tour of the city and tell you the history and all the nice things to do. It's actually your personal guide to go and discover the city, doing the exercise you like very much. So I would encourage you to have a look. Run in City.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much. You have pointed out a lot of interesting headlines. Okay, so now I'm so glad that many questions are now untangled thanks to the huge effort from our two expert speakers. Once again, I want to share my screen. Okay. Can you guys share see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so remember, I want to remind everyone that this webinar will be uploaded so you can revise or rewatch it. We will publish on our YouTube channel, PADA TV, and for all the attendees, you guys will receive the certificate of participants from PADA Youth. So before we end the webinar, I do want to thank our tech support and co-host again for making this broadcast become a very successful event by PADA Youth. This webinar was supported by Higher College of Technology, the Hong Kong Polytechnic University, the Open University of Hong Kong, PADA India Christ University Student Chapter, PADA Singapore Temasek Polytechnic Student Chapter, and University of Girona. So thank you all for enjoying this webinar. I hope you enjoy these sessions and look forward to seeing you in our next webinar in March. I'm so sorry. I'm so really sorry for some who have given time to think of questions, but I could not get to all of them. So a question that have been frequently asked is how to become a PADA Youth member. So to join our youth community, you just need to go to pada.org/YouTube, then register. Then you will receive a list of 8 steps on how to kickstart your individual free membership of PADA Youth. The program is full of insightful webinars like this one, as well as mentoring and networking sessions for youth. So lastly, if you have any questions or want a copy of this webinar, please let us know at ytp@pada.org or go to www.pada.org/youth for more information about PADA newsletter or our upcoming webinars in the full calendar. So our PADA Youth team will also be here to support you. So thank you so much for your time today. Thank you, Professor Dimitrios Buhalis and Dr. Mario Hadi.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Yes. Okay, goodbye, everyone, and enjoy your day.
Bye. Lovely to see you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.